the card kind of cools down. Well, I decided to put it behind me and see what happens. So far, not too bad. Eh. Probably bring the camera closer. Maybe better. Working with green screens, but this is actually working shield. So let me see if I can do this. I want to make a quick message about neocons real quick. Pretty much just a couple days ago, I just learned about what a neocon was and then what a neocon does. And so we've been doing some studies with pretty much the John Birch Society, and one of the things we're learning about is the Constitution. And just there are five different studies that we've been studying about so far. Five different four classes so far, because one class, the last one, was called a constitutional war, war powers and the enemy within. Well, this was one of the best ones, the best lessons I learned about, because this was so good, because what it did for me was that it showed me the importance of like knowing what the different terms mean. So, for example, the one about neocon, I'm not going to make this a long time. I'm going to see if I can do this in about maybe less than 10 minutes. All right, see if I can do this. Let's walk you through what we learned. Let's see. It talks about, constitutional war powers and the enemy within. So, the principles of the Declaration of Independence is we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by a Creator with certain inalienable rights. That the purpose of government is defined that to secure these rights, government is instituted. So to secure the rights of the of secure the inalienable rights of the individuals, these things have been made. I see the United Nations promises to protect your rights. But the rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. See, the thing is, the Declaration of Independence says that our rights come from God. The United Nations, their Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purpose and principles of the United Nations. Way if they want to. But whereas unalienable rights means they cannot be taken away. So what we've seen in the last couple of months and years has been something where our rights have been taken away many a times, because what happens is that you have it where the government comes along and says, hey, we're going to do this, yeah, I'm going to take away your rights. And they don't say it like that, but they say like, oh, in the case of safety or in the case of emergency, we're going to do this. But what ends up happening is that they take it and they don't give it back. Or when they give it back, they give it to you with less rights. But even the fact of the matter is that they can't take it away to begin with. Anyway, so now when four key principles of the Constitution. One is delegated powers. Delegated powers, government powers, delegated governmental power comes from the consent of the governed. Enumeration of powers. Powers given are specifically listed. Separation of powers. Powers are divided between three branches of government. Division of powers. Some powers are delegated to jurisdiction of the federal government, while some are reserved to the state or to the people. The dangers of war. Number 4. The means of defense against foreign dangers historically have become instruments of tyranny at home. James Madison said that. I'll say it again. The means of defense against foreign dangers historically have become instruments of tyranny at home. James Madison says that. Declaring war. Number 5. In no part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war or peace to the legislature and not the executive department. In no part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war or peace to the legislative power and not the executive department. See, the thing is, when a president decides to go to war and says, I'm going to go to war, what happens is that they're actually violating the Constitution. The Constitution has given specifically a war clause, or the provision to go to war, declare war, is specifically that of Congress. We had a situation with Mr. George Bush back in 1990, in 2001 and 2003, where he made a declaration to go to war against Iraq. And what happened with that was it was against the Constitution. He actually went to the United Nations for permission, and not with the Congress. Eventually, kind of strong armed. So he said it first before Congress said it. And that's not how it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be that Congress declares it before the president does. Anyway, so that's the one. The next one is what is the longest duration? What is the longest duration that Congress can fund a standing army? Can fund a standing army? It's 2 years. The army is a temporary structure. Compared to the National Guard or to constitutional militia, they have a list of comparing the National Guard to the National Guard to the constitutional militia. Like who? The National Guard is the few who enlist. Let's see. Where are the arms stored by the government? Are they deployed abroad? Yes. The constitutional militia is everyone is to be in it. Let's see. Were arms stored in homes and deployed abroad? No. Name two amendments and the Act of Congress from 1913, which drastically changed constitutional limits of out-of-control government's growth. Well, there was the amendment, and it was the you have it for the what do you call it? It was the 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act. And what it does is that it talks about like how we're not to interfere with other nations. We're supposed to have not interfere with other nations. What ends up happening is that we interfere with other nations as a nation. We Americans, America as a country, we have a thing where we start getting involved in other nations, and that brings us to number 9, which talks about then the whole thing with neocons. The neocon thing is that, let's see, the enemy within lists at least 3 traits of a neoconservatism. Well, pretty much social welfare program, right? They talk about intervention of foreign policies, and pretty much international communism, spread international communism. They call that under the spread democracy around the world, made the world safe for democracy. That's where it's pretty much crazy in terms of that. Next, you have this thing here where it talks about September 2001, 1 year before 9/11 attacks. Let's see, Project for the New American Century (PNAC) expressed need for a Pearl Harbor type event. That was in 2000, September 2000, 1 year before 9/11 attacks. Project of the New American Century (PNAC), which is a neocon conservative type thing, expressed need for a Pearl Harbor type event. Name at least 3 members of prominent members of the PNAC was Cheney, Rumsfeld, and Wolfowitz. And pretty much, there's isolationists and there's also non-interventionists. Isolationists is where a country goes and says, I'm not going to be involved in anything. I'm going to go ahead and just not be involved in any of the country and leave them alone. You stay there like China did for so many years. And being a non-interventionist means that I'm going to trade with you, but I'm not going to mess with your affairs. I'm going to trade, but I'm not going to mess with your situations. See, the United Nations does not give America an authority to do anything. It doesn't work that way. How it works, what authority has been given is from the people and it's been given to us by the Constitution. But authority comes from our inalienable rights, comes from the government's supposed to protect our rights. So they had a thing with prior to the 16th and 17th Amendments, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. What would happen was that whenever you had a situation where the House of Representatives, the state legislation would pick the senators, right? And so the House of Representatives was picked by the people. So the senators are picked by the state legislature. But what has happened is that they bypass that. So now the state legislature is just a joke. It really doesn't do anything except for what's in the state. It's kind of like they can cry and they can bawl, but really the senators can do whatever the heck they want. So you have a lot of different things. You talked about different wars. It says guilt. Great is the guilt of an unnecessary war. So whenever we as a people decide to go to war and we go ahead and do something that doesn't belong to us, what ends up happening is that we end up making a lot of trouble for ourselves. They say the only times there was 4 times, there's several times where we declared war. Congress declared war, and in those times they were was successful. And the times it didn't, it wasn't. For example, the 4 times, I think it was 5 times. I can't remember the 5, but we got 1812, Spanish American War. You got World War One, World War Two, and there's another one in there. But the thing, those ones that were declared war by Congress. All other wars, you got the Korean War, you got Iraqi War, you got the Persian Gulf. You got the Kuwait thing, you got the Vietnam War. All those were not declared wars by Congress, and therefore they were unconstitutional. You're talking about this thing called what is a just war? And that was very interesting for me because I was like, okay, no, that's something very intense. Let me see if I could see if I can find it for you. What is a just war? Okay, really quick. Here's what a just war is. A just war is pretty much is where you have a defensive war alone is legitimate, right? So we have to be attacked first for us in order to move. So for example, like they had the situation when they had Pearl Harbor, and they talked about that how Pearl Harbor the Japanese attacked America and Pearl Harbor, and so you notice they attacked a military base, right? They say must be formally declared by a proper authority. That's one, defensive war alone is legitimate. Two, must be formally declared by a proper authority. Three, just cause and right and let's see, right intention. Four, last resort after all else has failed. Five, limited and unchanging objectives. For example, they do this one thing and it means this one thing. Doesn't mean you're going to start switching up the game once you get in there. So, for example, you have a one and say, oh, we're going to go in there to free these people. Well, they're going to free the people, and that's it. Or they're going to deal with the military attacks that are coming at us. So we're going to hit all the installation. I see limited and unchanging objectives. What ends up happening is they end up going there and occupying for like 20 years in the case what we did with Afghanistan. And eventually they forgot the whole objective why they went in there. So it's like, why did you go in there in the first place? Afghanistan war. That didn't accomplish anything, did it? Last resort, okay, limited and unchanging objectives. Six, proportionate means no unlimited war. It's not going to be like forever. We're going to be fighting everyone the whole world forever. Non-combatants must have immunity. Now the thing is, we dropped two nuclear weapons on civilian territory. Okay, not two nuclear weapons. We had um, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? We did that, Americans. We did that, and it was that's against the just war. Okay, even though they attacked us and they attacked our military installation, yes, people died, and life is very important. When we retaliated and we dropped a nuke bomb on civilians, that was horrible. Okay, so we are not to be involved ourselves in foreign wars. We as Americans are not to be involved in foreign wars. It's part of our constitution, part of our pretty much our sovereignty, and a part of maintaining. It was all about many times the neocons who just kind of once they found out about this whole thing with 9/11, they started saying let's just go. So they started policing the world more than ever. So it was kind of like yeah, a Republican, but it wasn't just a Republican. It was a Republican that wanted to do um, attack something that wasn't there. So the other day they had a thing where you have George Bush on TV. He's talking about how things are unfair, unjust, and all that stuff. And regarding there's a video out there you can go look at it. And in the midst of it, he talks about instead of saying Ukraine, he says Iraq. And he was the one who said it in Iraq that he was the one who did this. And so when you look at the scenario, look at the situation, you're saying okay, he had like a slip of the tongue. Russell Brand talked about this a little while ago. And he talked about how he had a slip of the tongue. That George Bush had a slip of the tongue, and it showed that the people are concealing more than they're actually sharing with us. These are our people we're supposed to trust and look to and supposed to lead us. And what they're doing is that they are hiding information and they're doing stuff against us. And they're supposed to be the ones led by the people, for the people, not like a mob rule or anything like that, but they're supposed to represent us. And we're supposed to vote on these things. Again, no one's come to me to ask me questions about how I want to donate money to any country. As a matter of fact, we're not supposed to donate any money to any country. We're not supposed to do that. Any money to any country, whether it be Israel or any other country, we're not supposed to be giving money to them like that, because what it's doing is that you're making ties with things by way of money. And see, we're taking the people's money, the people we are struggling, right? We as Americans are struggling, and they're opening the borders and they're giving money to people, and then we are struggling as people. Our gas prices are going up and all our stuff are going through the roof, and our Democrat cities that like here in New York, Democrat cities are being given millions and millions of dollars from taxpayer dollars. So you know what they could do to us, they could do for us, they could stop taxing us. What they could do, they can give us a break, stop taxing the people. If you have so much money to give billions of dollars of taxpayers money over to a company, over to other countries, what happens is that you're taking from us to give to somebody else. And then the other part of it, they have no they're not gonna have to pay it back. They're gonna be like, okay, we're not gonna pay it back. We're gonna keep it forever. And so the bottom line is like, there's no treaty aspect. There's no reason for that. And so the whole foreign policy aspect that we are just meddling with the other people's affair, trying to make a proxy war. And they're talking about going to war. No one's declared war yet, but now they're saying about war. So anyway, long story short, you have this scenario and you have this the way it is working is that people are saying that people are saying that the government are saying to us that we are involved in this thing that nobody asks to be involved in. We're not asked to be. Yeah, there are people suffering, and there's people always going to be people suffering. Not saying that we shouldn't, but it's saying that it shouldn't help. But at least give the people a chance to vote on the matter before you guys go ahead and bring us into war. We want to send our people in there. It's not like the people in Congress or the people in the Senate or people in government are going to go over there and fight. No, no, they're going to take people from us, our group, from the taxpayers. They're gonna take the taxpayers out to go fight a war that we don't even know what's about. Like they had 20 years in Afghanistan. They had people stationed in Afghanistan for 20 years, right? And then later, just suddenly come out and they leave a whole bunch of people in there, Americans in there. And it's just like they don't care. It's like, we just do this and we don't care. And it's like, it's weird because you have the Democrats doing one thing and you have the Republicans doing another thing. And you have these people called neocons. You have the the social democrat in here in the midst of all this, just doing some oligarchy type junk up in our world. And so I don't understand it because the way it works is like they're not supposed to be doing all these things. They've kind of like gone free and just running with whatever. And then somebody said to me, why it's happening like this? Well, I just kind of started thinking about it. The reason why it happened too, I thought somebody tell me some people were telling me some things, and I started thinking about this, and then it made sense to me that what we are in a constant state of emergency. And being in a constant state of emergency, they just keep suspending the Constitution. So, because if they were to follow the Constitution, one, judges wouldn't be able to rule from the bench. The Congress, the executive branch couldn't make any executive orders and keep doing these things because you can't rule by decreeing executive orders. You know. Number four, you have all these different things that are going on. You have this thing where they're not listening to the people and they're giving out billions of dollars. I mean, like, what is $40 billion? What is $40 billion to, $40 is something we could never make in our whole life. You know that, unless you had a company and you had millions of people working for you, you couldn't make $40 billion. And there you have, like, Elon Musk was going to go ahead and he's going to go ahead and buy Twitter for, like, 44 billion. But what ended up happening is that, he decided to kind of hold on that. But it's like $40 billion. We, I mean, it's like that's almost going to be $80 billion we're going to give to a country that's borderline of another country, and they have to be able to fight their own thing, and we're meddling with them. So we are meddling with another country, and we shouldn't be meddling. We should leave them alone. We should leave them alone. We should. What's wrong with just mind our own business and maintain our own sovereignty? Let them go. Just getting foreign aid. I think what they're doing, honestly, is that they're going to take, in my opinion, they're going to take this money and they're going to run with it. They're going to say, you know what, in a state of emergency, let's go ahead and make some friends, like the Bible says about, Jesus said about how these wicked people, they take the money and they make friends with their unrighteous money, and they use it to make friends. And when they get fired or get whatever, they're going to run to their country and be able to make money. So they have these people investments, just like how liquor stores weren't closed during the pandemic, right? During the pandemic, the liquor stores were open, and you're like, how can liquor stores be open? Why in the world? Why are big box store, big chain places closed, but it closing mom and pop shops? Why would that be such a problem? Why is the small one more dangerous than the big one? It never made any sense. Oh, and had limited numbers of people. Oh, yeah, but a small shop can never have a limit of 100 people. A small shop could have maybe 10, 5, or 6 people. They'll be well within the limits, but they went ahead and they shut those people down. See, this system of government is not really for the people anymore. It's for the elite. It's becoming an oligarchy, and it's becoming more and more as I see this. It's like I was talking to a friend of mine, and we're saying that as we're going through these classes and just going through these things, that no matter how you slice it, it's still kind of democracy. And democracy is kind of the worst form of government, where the majority rules. So, yeah, the poor and a small number and the minority can say whatever they want to say. But the bottom line is that when you look at the whole 9 yards of it all, what ends up happening is that you have this thing where the majority of people will always outrule the minority of people. So I mean, like, yeah, you might have representation in the states, and the big states can talk, and the small states can have a equal say. Like Rhode Island can stand toe to toe with California, or with Alaska, or New York, or Florida. But the bottom line is, like, they have representation. Bottom line is still going to be majority rule. When we pick a president, we pick majority rule. Electoral college majority rule. Or even like when you do a voting, the one who gets the more votes is the one who wins. So I mean, it's still like a majority rule type thing. Even though it may not be the majority, like, mobbing out there on the street. So it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's always going to be there. In what case will you ever find when the minority will win? When it's less votes win in the House, it's not going to win that way. It's going to be the majority will always win. So I look at this and I say to myself, you know what? It's kind of like that. I understand the concept and the principle of how it's supposed to work and how you're supposed to have people to represent you, and it's a really good thing. But it comes down to it that, it's still the majority of people who vote in its favor. If you have 100 people are saying that we should pave the streets with gold, and one person says they shouldn't, it's still like that. According to law, and they do a official vote, and they vote for it, and they make it all, like, legit and all that, and they still vote, and they vote, okay, this is this, this is this. It's still, 100 people will have the road will be paved. Or if, for example, they say, let's vote ourselves the money out of the other thing. Let's vote to no longer have any more taxes. We're going to have no more taxes. We're not going to pay taxes anymore. Government, we're going to shut the government down until it can get this stuff together. These 530 something people who are ruling the country and are bringing us into unjust wars, who are taking our money and giving it over to other countries, who are supporting foreign nations, who have ties in, who are these senators who make 150,000 a year, come back with millions of dollars a year based on their investments and things like that. We're gonna go shut it all down, and we're gonna start afresh with a whole new constitution. Start with a whole new batch. We're gonna fire all the politicians, every last one of them. Well, all of them. And we're gonna restart again with a brand new batch of people from the local government. Local people are gonna go ahead and learn about the Constitution, and everybody should get, like, gun training, like the Second Amendment says. So everybody has guns, everybody's armed. So when these things happen in the city where there's people shooting and only the bad guys have guns, and they keep making these stupid gun laws that don't hurt anybody, because criminals don't care about laws. Instead, what it does is it takes away the ability for people to actually have their ability to protect themselves. So there you have it. They should start afresh, start anew, and go back to the former things. Become a pure constitutionalist and stop being like the people who are just like willy nilly and whatever. Because at the end of the day, you look back at all the stuff they say, all these experts and all this stuff, and all these political scientists, and all, they're not looking at the Constitution. What the Constitution says. The Constitution says it's for our rights to be protected. Government's supposed to protect our rights, and they're supposed to have a navy. That's supposed to have an army over in a place for 20 years, okay? And it's like we're supposed to have our standing, not even standing army for more than 2 years, and we're supposed to fund the army for only 2 years. And I think it's like, that's supposed to be like ongoing thing. We're supposed to have a navy to protect ourselves from the world. I know we have different situations now, have infiltrators and things like that. Bottom line, we should be protecting ourselves. Like the fence around your house protects you. Your fence is not supposed to go and attack the neighbors. Your fence gives you your border around your house and protects you. So this is where your house is, and this is where it is. Is that your fence is not supposed to be like going out and just attacking the neighbors around the corner. Anyways, so that's all I have for you today. Next time I talk, I'm gonna probably do some masking tape, something. I'm gonna make a creature for you so I can show you that, as opposed to like talking. But I wanted to keep it short. I know I was gonna put about 10 minutes, but now I have 20 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and just stop it right here. Thank you so much for listening to me. Definitely get involved in politics. At first I was like, nah, not to get involved, but yeah, politics is like something you have to know the Constitution, number one. That it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The reason why so many things are messed up is because people, one, have forgotten who their creator is. I mean, they say that the Constitution only works for moral people. It doesn't work for immoral people. If you have immorality in your heart and wickedness, it's not going to work, because you have to have a base to stand on. Before you have the inalienable rights that God has given to us, you have to know that God gave you life, and God gave you a conscience to do the right thing. And when we do a wrong thing, we have to say sorry, we have to own up to it and do what's right. But what happens is that the Constitution is designed so people say, just leave me alone. Let me do my thing and not mess with you. And that's what happens. It's supposed to protect you so you can do your own thing and not be interfered with or meddled with like the government is meddling with the rest of the world. So that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Greg, and God bless you. Be strong, Lord, the power of His might. And Psalm 121. I look to the hills from whence come my help. My help comes from the name of the Lord. Help come to the Lord, the creator of heaven and earth. All right, so God bless you. Talk to you soon. All right, have a good night.